Wow, so we've got breaking news. Donald Trump just suffered a major loss in the courts today. I want to go over with you and let's jump right in. These are the headlines. Appeals court rejects Trump's global tariffs. And you guys know this. We've been talking about the trade war for a while now. And the question people keep asking, like, how are you going around Congress? Why are you going around Congress? And this is something that he's been trying to do with like multiple policies, not just the tariffs, but this is obviously a big one in the courts saying no, no. Another headline. Trump administration live updates. Appeals court finds many tariffs were issued illegally. Okay. And this is where it gets a little bit hairy. Appeals court strikes down Trump's tariffs as illegal. Okay. I'm with you there, but leaves them in place. So what we're setting this up for is a major fight at the Supreme Court. I think you guys know this. And I mean, the Supreme Court's docket's going to be full of like all this Trumpy stuff. Basically, Trump's trying to, become king, emperor, whatever, send the economy and the country into a tailspin. And, I'm saying with you guys, just like, hey, okay, when are we going to put a stop to this dude? One is midterms. Two, I guess, theoretically, is the Supreme Court. I think we're talking mid-October, but I want to go show you where we're at right now. Because it does matter and you do want to understand it. So here's what it says. It says, President Donald Trump's cornerstone economic policy was dealt another setback Friday. That's good news. When federal appeals court ruled he did not have the authority to impose most of his sweeping tariffs on imports from dozens of trading partners. And if you guys know, Donald Trump's basically declared war, trade war against every country on the planet all at the same time. And we don't have very competent staff. So this is recipe for disaster. So there's that. And then you're trying to go around Congress, which, the appeals court's like, yo, cut it out. But I guess they're leaving it in place for whatever reason. I think it's because they're going to the Supreme Court. Trump's tariffs will be allowed to remain in effect for now to allow time for possible appeal to the Supreme Court, of course. The U.S. Court of Appeals for the Federal Circuit upheld a lower court's decision. So there's a couple times we're talking about this now, that Trump's overstepped his authority in using the 1977 law called the International Emergencies Economic Powers Act. I think on TV, the Trump people, they always refer to it as IEPA, but this is what it is. And it all boils down to, can Trump just declare, hey, it's an emergency, tariffs for everyone, right? And Trump does that for a lot of stuff. Hey, it's emergency, got to send a National Guard. All this stuff, in my mind, when you go through this stuff, it's illegal what Trump is doing. There's multiple things. And this is where, he has people on his side in the Supreme Court. So I don't know which way it's going to go. I really don't know. That's why we're going to follow this. The emergency law is used in the case of threats against the country. And so what they try to declare is they say, hey, there's fentanyl from, Mexico or Canada, therefore we must put a bunch of tariffs, right? So that's what they try to claim, or they say, hey, we're losing jobs to other countries or whatever. They're trying to cheat us. That's Trump basically lies and say, hey, it's emergency. He'll just make up anything to say emergency and try to connect that to then before we have to have tariffs. Already, and I'm going to go through some more, but I just want to put some context here. Already, if you saw my last video on this, with the whole tariff de minimis thing that just ended today, that's like packages under $800 now have to pay tariffs. Many countries around the world are now stopping mail service, parcel service to be exact, but it varies on the country, and it's sanity. And I still have yet to see a full list of which countries, because there's so many. Watch this video if you haven't already. We did a couple on this. I think there's a couple things going on. That's why I'm mentioning both of these things. I think there's going to be the constitutional fight, right? So what's the Supreme Court ultimately going to rule? You also got the political fight. Hey, when is Congress going to step up? And then three, the just like popularity / the American people fight, where like people are like, yo, I just realized I'm paying the cost of these things, right? Because I think there's MAGA still out there that think that you're all going to get rich off the tariffs. I hate to break it to you. You're going to pay higher costs. Look at this. Like, this is an example. They're saying, hey, when the de minimis thing ends, your stroller that used to be $399 is now going to be $544. Your chef's knife, and that would be from China, the stroller from China. The chef knife from Japan that used to be $240, now $298. Your yoga pants from Vietnam that used to be $98, now they're $153. That's a big jump. Nutritional supplement from Canada that used to be $37, now you're looking at $60. And then your cotton slippers from China from $30 to now $45. And you guys can see that stuff. I just want to put this in like just real terms, why you should care about this stuff. Your costs are all going to go up. You're going to see it. Now, Trumpers and Trump himself, he's going to say, no, we're all still awesome. Let's see what he says. I'm curious. all tariffs are still in effect. Okay, that's from Trump. So that part actually is correct. The court said no, but we're leaving it in effect for now. It's going to go to the Supreme Court. It's from Trump. Today, a highly partisan appeals court, he calls everyone partisan if he doesn't, like the ruling, incorrectly said that our tariffs should be removed, but they know the United States of America will win in the end. Really? Okay. If these tariffs ever went away, it would be total disaster for our country. Of course he says that. It would make us financially weak, and we have to be strong. So I just want to stop right there. And if you guys watch my channel, you know Trump's a liar. You know that. Now just remember the tariffs. We haven't done this kind of thing since like 1930s, which is basically Great Depression kind of stuff. And it just feels like he's kind of pushing us in that direction, going around Congress. And I mean, I'm really hoping the Supreme Court steps up here. But I do want you to see what Trump has to say. The USA will no longer tolerate enormous trade deficits. That's a bunch of nonsense. Also, am I really mad at, I use the coffee example. It's easiest to understand. Am I really mad that I have to import coffee from another country, right? Am I really mad about that? Are they cheating us somehow? Because I can't make coffee in, USA so much, right? And this is part of trade. And yeah, it's a trade deficit. We buy more coffee than they buy from the USA. But it's like, so? Or they'll be like, leaving out, all the services that people use, be it like Facebook, Google, Microsoft, leave out, say, financial services like Visa, MasterCard, this kind of stuff. So trade deficits is misleading when he talks about these kind of things. We're a richer country. We, buy from other countries that maybe not so much wealth, and we import stuff that we need. But he'll declare that emergency for somehow. He'll also say unfair tariffs and non-tariff trade barriers imposed by other countries. Again, this is another lie. If you go to other countries, some products they just don't want. They just don't want. It's just the products in the USA may not match theirs. Or in terms of non-tariff barrier, it'd be something like, hey, USA, we just don't want your meat. They don't match our quality standards of meat in said country. Or if you're something like in Australia, we don't need your meat. We got plenty of great meat. And I mentioned Australia because I'm in Korea, and we bought lots of Australian meat. And Australian meat's pretty good. So thank you, Australians. True story. There's a whole bunch of it here. So there's that. Barriers imposed by other countries, friend or foe, that undermine our manufacturers, farmers, and everyone else. Okay, if allowed to stand, this decision would literally destroy the United States of America. You have to read Trump for entertainment. At the start of the Labor Day weekend or on holiday, we should all remember that the tariffs are the best tool to help our workers and support companies that produce made in America products. So I want to address this. So yes, theoretically, tariffs could protect local industry, say theoretically. The idea would be here's a good example. We'll use the example of shrimp because they like to talk about shrimp on the Trumpers do. So if American shrimp costs more because it just costs more to produce, be it labor, be it maybe we don't have the same supply, maybe regulations, whatever, right? American shrimp costs more. And other shrimp from other countries, be it a Vietnam or Thailand or wherever it comes from, comes in less, then you could put tariffs on that and to sort of make it equal playing field to encourage people to say, buy more American shrimp. So that would be, one concept. The problem is though, I'm just giving an example. The problem is though, on the way Trump's doing, he's like, I'm just going to put tariffs on every country, even if we don't even have a trade deficit with them, just because I feel like it. And then I'm going to use said money, not necessarily to supplement, industries on a particular category basis. I'm just going to do it how I want, put it in my own slush fund, and then just distribute to my buddies and my billionaire friends, right? So a lot of this stuff is half-truths, misleading, or just outright lies. The best way to describe it, just Trump lies all the time. And I just like to have honest conversation with those stuff. So don't think that, tariffs across the board are always awful. You can do it, but just, be honest about how you're doing it and if it does indeed work. And also be honest who pays a tariff. It's the importing company, and they often pass it on to the consumer. And none of this, should be a shock to you guys. That's why we're talking about it. Trump also says here, for many years, tariffs were allowed to use against us by our uncaring and unwise politicians. Now with the help of the United States Supreme Court, wow, what are we talking about here? He's talking about the Supreme Court helping him. Interesting. We will use them to benefit our nation and make America rich, strong, and powerful again. Thank you for attention to this matter. Okay. Let's read some more. So that was interesting how he said help from the Supreme Court, but yeah, that's going to set up a fight. I don't know where it's going to go. I don't know. That's why I'm going to pay attention to the Supreme Court. Trump's global tariffs are unlawful, appeals court says. Okay, what else do we have to say about this? A federal appeals court has ruled that most of the President Trump's sweeping global tariffs are unlawful, potentially dealing a significant blow to the president's effort to reshape the country's trade policy unilaterally, all by yourself. And it was a 7-4 decision, so it wasn't unanimous. That's key. Trump's actions were, quote, invalid as contrary to the law, as it should be. And then it says, however, the court delayed the impact of the decision through mid-October to allow them to go to the Supreme Court, right? Because we agree, this is from the appeals court here, because we agree that International Economics Powers Act, so the EPA thing, grant of presidential authority to regulate imports does not authorize the tariffs imposed by the executive order, we affirm. And Trump does a bunch of this kind of stuff. He's like, hey, I'm just going to sign my name on something, and therefore it's the law of the land. Again, he tries to circumvent Congress all the time. And it's going to be multiple things like this. They're saying here, October 14th, the court will return to the case to the lower courts. Okay, so yeah, I think October 14th may be the day. In its decision Friday, the appeals court determined that only Congress, not the president alone, has the authority to impose tariffs, setting up a high-priority legal question for the Supreme Court regarding the scope of the president's power. The decision centers on whether the authority to, quote, regulate imports included in the International Emergency Economic Powers Act means the president can issue tariffs on his own. This is going to be really important ruling, too. It's really important ruling, actually. 7-11 judges said that their rarely used law does not give Trump the power to implement either his reciprocal tariffs or the trafficking tariffs. So there's different ones, right? So say, hey, tariffs in the other country, they have tariffs on U.S. products, so therefore we can put tariffs on them. That's an emergency, right? Or, hey, we're getting fentanyl or whatever from Canada or in Mexico. It's an emergency. They're saying, no, you can't do it. That's reading right here. Also says here, we discern, tariffs are a core of congressional power, okay? That's what they wrote. They also write, we discern no clear congressional authorization by IEEPA for tariffs of the magnitude of reciprocal tariffs and trafficking tariffs, okay? Given these considerations, we conclude Congress, in enacting IEEPA, did not give the president wide-ranging authority to impose tariffs of the nature of the trafficking and reciprocal tariffs simply by use of the term regulate and importation, okay? What else we got? A subset of 4 judges, so again, it was a 7-4, from the majority took the decision even further. Oh, this is actually this would be 4 as part of the 7 who are the majority, okay. Took the decision even further, determining that IEEPA does not give Trump the power to issue any tariffs, okay. Not just the 2 types of tariff in question. So we're talking about tariffs if another country does reciprocal, and tariffs if we're trying to stop trafficking, I guess. But they're saying Trump can't do any tariffs. Okay, that's some of them, 4 of the 7. The government's interpretation of IEEPA would be functionally limitless delegation of congressional taxation authority. And yes, tariffs are a tax. So that's interesting. So I guess you'd have 3 positions on this, right? How do you rule the president's power in tariffs as a whole? Can they do some tariffs sometimes or just not at all? And then this would be the minority decision. So 7-4, again, this would be another group. In a minority opinion, 4 other judges disagreed, suggesting Trump's declaration of national emergency is enough of an unusual and extraordinary threat to justify tariffs. And IEEPA's language, as confirmed by the history, authorized tariffs to regulate importation. So I'm like I said, I just keep saying the same thing, but I'm real curious, and this is not just curious, but we're going to pay attention to it. It's really important on what the Supreme Court says. If the tariffs are struck down, in my opinion, they should be, right? Then you got this crazy situation to where there's going to be a ton of companies out there and consumers and going to want the refunds back. It's like, dude, you charged me a tax because the Trump people have been bragging about all this stuff. Where's my money? I want that back. It was all illegal. And that is going to be a massive mess and a massive fight. And that one's going to be hard to predict also. I'll just say this, in any of this stuff, if you're a Trumper in the Trump regime or whatever, do not follow illegal orders. And maybe in the short time, you feel like, oh, I'm on TV and oh, he's paying me whatever salary or whatever. But the long game, you're burning a lot of bridges, you're hurting the country. And just if you want to spend a personal thing, if that appeals to you, you're going to be hurting yourself quite a bit as you're going to be pissing off so many people. And then the damage that Trump has been doing to the, relationship with other countries with these tariffs is just awful. So I certainly hope the Supreme Court steps up, but I can't predict that. And I know I keep repeating that, but I can't. So we're going to find out what happens with this. And I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts. What do you think the Supreme Court's going to rule? You saw all this stuff. And I'll catch you all in the next video.